Now, if it's existing construction, then you have to be a little bit more careful here, because um, you're installing access points inside a business that's already operational. You have to comply with their security, safety, occupational health, whatever policies they have. If it's an industrial facility, then you probably have to complete a safety orientation. That means you, your employees, your subcontractors, that could take a day, take half a day, take a few hours. There's all kinds of things they can talk about. And of course, you need to identify the time frame for completing the installation. The client may decide that you won't have to do it in a day or a couple of days or a week, and that's because they don't want to mess and disruption in their office for a month or 2 months. So don't think you can go there, work a few days, and then come back next week and work a couple more days. They may not be happy with that. So consider that you might have to hire contractors or laborers to help you, and make sure they're professional, know what they're doing, and you need to factor that into cost ahead of time. And be careful. In an office, for example, yes, you can run data cable and AP installation for the most part during business hours, if the client agrees. Be practical though. You can't install cable in a conference room when the CEO is having a presentation. That's just not going to be acceptable. Be safe, obviously. Don't make a mess, and don't leave tools everywhere and people walking and texting and not paying attention. They could knock you off your ladder. So have somebody watching out for you. And depending on the client, again, if it's not an office, if it's, let's say, a retail store like Lululemon or Walmart, then they're gonna say, hey, you definitely can't come in here in the middle of the day and start running cable, because it's packed with customers, and it will be very disruptive and not safe either. It's one thing if an employee is irritated, it's another if a customer gets irritated. So you have to be careful. With a warehouse, the same thing. A very busy warehouse might expect you to do the install at night. Airports and shopping malls, that totally depends on the airport and the shopping mall. Some of them are okay with the install during the day, simply because they have much wider areas, and they have areas with high traffic and areas with low traffic. So you might tackle the high traffic areas at night and the low traffic areas during the day. Be careful again at night. You need to plan everything out. You might be there only for one night. The client may, because the client has to leave the building open for you at night. So if it's an airport, not a big deal. But if it's a very small retail store, then they have to pay the manager overtime to stay all night with you until the project gets finished. So they don't want to pay overtime for a whole week while you do your thing. So again, make sure you have enough people, and make sure that you have a working scissor lift and the tools and the network equipment before you start. Because if you get to 2 a.m. and you realize you ran out of data cable, and you can't just go buy some more at 2 in the morning. I mean, you can, but it's gonna be very disruptive and unprofessional, and it's gonna waste a lot of time, and time is money. So yeah, like I said, run your cable, terminate it, certify it, install and configure your switches, then configure and mount your access points. Do these steps in order or don't. That's up to you. Sometimes you have to use your judgment depending on the size of the project and the delays and whatever. And another important thing is if you're plugging into an existing network switch, so let's say you're just responsible for running the cable and mounting the access point, then maybe the client is responsible for configuring the switches and controller to work with the new access points. You're just wiring and plugging things in. So find out ahead of time which network switch and port they want you to use and which port on the switch corresponds to which access point. Sometimes it matters, sometimes it doesn't. If you're responsible for configuring the switches, then get the passwords from the client ahead of time. People go on holidays, so showing up at night to run the wire and hook up the access points and then asking for the password, well, the local office manager who's there looking out for you probably doesn't have any idea what you're doing, so they may not have ability to give you the information. Make sure to save a backup of the config before you make any changes, obviously.